Good evening, 49er faithful. Welcome to another episode of Between Two Beards. It has been too long since we have had a Between Two Beards episode, but you know what has happened in that time frame is the two beards have been in proximity to one another. Randon and I were able to meet each other in Atlanta. It was fantastic. I'm excited to be back. Even though I'm remote here in Denver and we're keeping this a short one and we're at a late hour, it doesn't matter. Randon, it's a pleasure to see you, my friend.
It's been good. The beards got to know each other. They became good friends, and now they're having separation anxiety. I don't know. He's like, cut me short, and I'm like, dude, you can't do that. We're on a beard show. He's talking in my head and all that kind of stuff like that. But it's been going good, man. I've missed you, man. We're going to talk about Atlanta, but I had a fun time with you. It's been good. Long overdue. The game, obviously, we're talking about the Falcons game. Not ideal, as they would say, but the vacation was ideal. It was a lot of fun.
It really was. We had a good time out there. And this is what I would say to people who are going to games, man. Make the experience about more than the game, because you don't know what the product on the field is going to look like. And if it had only been about the game in Atlanta, Randon and I would have had a miserable time, but instead it was spectacular. We had a great experience in getting to know one another, got to go see the freaking Atlanta aquarium, made a day of it, had some dope food.
How about those dolphins? Drowned.
Yes. What's that?
So how about the dolphins? That guy surfed on a dolphin for over 50 yards.
Yes, the dolphin show was on point. It was as if, dude, they were moving at 30 miles an hour and they would get slammed into the wall. It seemed very reckless. The Dolphins were not following safety protocols at all, and I was there for it.
A little Dante Whitner, Ronnie Lott, head crushes over the middle. That's what it looked like.
But I will say that the Chinese food, drowning our sorrows after the game, 3-course Peking duck, we did it up, my friend. And I felt the MSG carried me through the pain of that game. It was still tough, but it carried me through. And I got to say, a special shout out. We got a chance to meet a couple of fans of Between Two Beards, Dynamite Dave and Jeffrey coming out. Jeffrey Barraza Ortiz. Appreciate both of you coming out to say hello. That was cool for me. To get a chance to say what's up, take a picture, and just really get to know a couple of fans of Between Two Beards.
Yeah, guy hit me up a couple, the day of that I got there that I posted I was going, said, hey, it would just be nice to just, say what's up, we've been watching your show, and, not to get, to celebrity like I'm, not a Kardashian or anything like that, but it was cool, it was just fun to talk 49ers football. And you think about it, I listen to other podcasts daily or almost daily, right? And we have listeners that come on every single week. It's a part of their life. They're using their time, and my time isn't more important than their time. They're dictating their time is important to watch us do what we do, have fun up here. And for them to say, hey, we're not only going to do that, but take our time to go to Atlanta and want to meet you and have our experience in the ATL, you be a part of it. I was greatly humbled about what this show means to people, and I was just really taken back by just what we do here, you and I, Rob, and what we bring to people's evenings.
It really does feel cool to meet people who talk about what that means to them, because I know what it means to me. I know what it means to you. It means a great deal to us to be on here on the air, but to have people share that, yeah, it's a regular part of their experience being a 49er faithful, that's cool, man. It really is. I want to say what's up to those that are here in the chat. Obviously, with the late start, we had plenty in before the chat. John De La Rosa, Lisa, Sean 9519ers, Jason Walsh, Raphael 5629ers, Darren Worthington, the Stivers Niners 209 show. We have got Alan Elizer coming in. Rob, Schuh and Randon, good late evening to you both, the sneakerheads and everyone. CMC that like button, you all. I don't know. CMCing a like button feels like maybe you're hitting the like button too much. I want to talk about, we'll get into CMC, but I've got this fear that Kyle Shanahan's going to be tempted to overuse CMC a little bit. But we'll get into that. We have.
So is that CMC this channel, right? You like, you subscribe, and you set your notifications. A 3-fer, as we talked about.
Hey, the old trifecta. I love it. Absolutely love it. Wanda Brown coming in, reminding folks to hit that like button as well. Smash it, as a matter of fact. Okay, so we do need to keep this one short, and we've got a few topics to get through. And the very first one, after we talk about how fantastic Atlanta was, the opportunity we had there a couple of weeks ago, haven't had the opportunity to cover that yet. The CMC trade is another thing that went down while we were off, Randon. So obviously the terms of the trade, I'm interested by what came out before the terms of the trade. So I'll give you the actual deal in just a moment for everybody. But what fascinated me was the NFL Network's report that Carolina would want 2 first-round picks for McCaffrey. So that came out prior to the Niners deal. Then the actual deal comes out. The 49ers acquire star running back Christian McCaffrey from the Panthers in exchange for 2023 second, third, and fourth round selections, plus a 5th round pick in 2024. CBS graded this as a B- for the 49ers and an A- for Carolina. When I look at wanting 2 first-round picks and ending up getting a second, a third, a fourth, and next year's 5th, which is more like giving away a 6th this year, that in no way equates to 2 first-round picks. So I'm looking at this as a win for the 49ers. But Randon, I want to know your thoughts. Do you think the Niners won this trade, or did Carolina come out in front?
If CMC plays like he did against the Rams, there's no amount of much picks that could be given up to have that kind of value. But what you're looking at here, and you know, people might hate me for this or whatever, but we gave up too much. Initially, it was my thought. If you add all these together, and depending on the scale, that whether it's the old scale or the new scale, it equated to a top 15 pick, right? And so, you know me, I'm not a fan of spending money on running backs. I'm not a fan of spending high picks on running backs. The value isn't there. Now, where I think where the Niners can get value is if Shanahan changes his coaching style to benefit Christian McCaffrey. And so far it has. 8 receptions against the Rams. He's been used quite a bit as a receiver. He's been used in space. He's not taking a lot of touches in between the tackles. Now, he was still on the freaking field with 3 minutes to go, and we're dominating this game. So Shanahan needs to just put in whoever at that point and stop putting your players at risk. But from a pure pick standpoint, from a pure value standpoint, I think the Niners gave up too much. Now, are we in win now mode? Or are we in win now mode? We are. So teams that are in win now mode generally pay more for those types of players.
Yes,
right?
they do.
You have the Rams reportedly offer 2 first-round picks for Bradley Chubb, right? So these teams are trying to come out and win. Now, running backs typically fall off at 26. There has been some other guys like Marshall Faulk who had a resurgence in his career for the Rams. So, like, ultimately, to be seen, will this be a value? Will dictate how Christian McCaffrey plays for the rest of his contract. But for me, as a player that I've like the way I value running backs, like you don't pay them, you don't spend high picks on them. It went against everything that I hold dear. But as soon as that trade went across, I did my happy dance. I jumped around in circles like everybody else. I fist pumped. I thought about the beautiful orchestra that Mozart would. That is Shanahan would conduct for this offense, and it came to fruition against the Rams, and hopefully it continues. And if that continues, then there's no amount of picks that you could have paid for what this offense could achieve.
Right, because what you saw against the Rams highlights that Christian McCaffrey is more than just your standard running back, and Kyle Shanahan will probably be able to use him as such. I think that I'm somewhere in the middle. I agree with you that it's hard to stomach giving up so much when you just think about, hey, this is a running back that you're going out to get. The 49ers historically have had fantastic success plugging in guys that didn't cost a fraction of what it did to bring in Christian McCaffrey, let alone the contract that you're now going to be paying him going forward. So I certainly see the criticism of the deal from that standpoint. However, when I look at it and contrast it against what the Panthers were hoping to get out of it, it does leave me feeling better that the 49ers did not end up paying the astronomical asking price that was out there. And then seeing him against the Rams leads me to believe he will be used in such a way that he adds enough value to make up for the cost given up. But I'm with you that it was a steep cost. The Niners still do have a fair number of picks going into next year. They still have 9 total. The 2023 draft picks, the 2 third-round compensatories that are still there, a the 5th rounder from Miami. We'll talk about the Jeff Wilson trade in just a moment. A 5th-round compensatory, 6th-round compensatory, 7th from Denver from last year's Jonas Griffith trade, a 7th rounder of our own, and then the 7th round compensatory. So 9 picks still gives them plenty of ammunition to move around a little bit, but they are all late picks. I mean, it's going to be tough to find someone that falls to us like a Drake Jackson next year. And honestly, this team is going to have a lot of free agents. So it does beg the question as to whether this move will be great for this year, but maybe hurt us long-term. I don't think so. I tend to see this as a positive. I agree with you that it was a lot to give up. Overall, I'm very satisfied with the trade. When you factor in what was paid and that happy dance that you did at the end for Christian McCaffrey, overall, are you satisfied with the trade? Do you think the Niners got better and made the right move in bringing Christian McCaffrey in?
I think they needed to make a move. Well, running back, maybe too steep. We're talking about, right, 3rd round pick for Trey Sermon, 3rd round pick for TDP, who is now useless for the next 3 years. You have, you have Christian McCaffrey now, who is a 2nd and a 3rd and all this kind of stuff. I get it. Fans are high off this win. They're high off this win, right? But what did Christian McCaffrey do last year? He was injured. What did he do the year before? He was injured, right? So there is a future, or a possible future, where we gave all this up and Christian McCaffrey doesn't play 50% of the games that he should be. So I get it. Everybody's happy. I'm happy. I'm ecstatic. I'm fist pumping and everything like this. And if he plays to the level that he can, then like I said, we didn't give up enough to get Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
If we get reincarnated Marshall Faulk, which he was 26 when he got traded to the Rams, and he had a dynamite career with the greatest show on turf. All these people in the chat are 100% correct. Yeah, I'm wrong. It is fine. But I'm a GM here. I have a GM brain, and I'm saying, hey, you've already spent 2/3 on running backs who didn't pan out. Now you're spending the 2nd and the 3rd, all these kind of things, on running back that might not pan out, who has been injured more than 70% of the last 2 seasons. That's just my thought process there is, I don't mean to be negative Nancy, but I'm just being a realist that it's a possibility that he could be injured.
That's the reality, right? I mean, we don't want to talk about it. Certainly as 49ers fans, we don't want to talk about it. Completely agree with the comments from Wanda Brown and from Dirk Pippen here saying he's the ultimate flex. Wanda Brown talking about he's not just a running back. Totally agree. And I'm with you, Randon, that if he's not out there playing, that doesn't actually matter. So I would say if he remains healthy, and it's hard to predict health. So I'm not trying to say that the 49ers should have taken this into consideration. Again, I'm happy with the trade. I would have made it myself. But if he does end up being injured, you will have to look back on this as a questionable move and wonder whether it hamstrings us in seasons going forward. Joey Mellon's coming in.
Wanda, I don't mind. Wanda says GM brain, most GMs are too damn scared to make win. I just said that I'm glad that they put their sack on the table. They should be. This team is too good not to win. I'm fine with the ballsy move. In ballsy moves, you tend to overpay. And if the ballsy move doesn't work, it's going to look bad. It is just, that's the fact. And I'm trying to be a realist here and look at both sides. I like the move. I like Christian McCaffrey. I think he's the best weapon in the NFL. And if he stays healthy and Shanahan continues to use him, this will be the biggest steal of the trade deadline for the last 5 years. It will be.
If he's healthy throughout his career with the 49ers, it was a freaking home run. And if it wasn't, it was a strikeout, but it's still a strikeout I would have gone out swinging, right? I would have made that same mistake myself.
All I was talking about was the value is all.
Yes. And I think you're right about that. You have to take into consideration all those other factors when you're looking at the value strictly. as a GM, again, I still would have made that call personally. Joey Mellons coming in with the super chat. Just glad that I'm alive. So am I, quite honestly. Randon, we haven't even talked about this, but I was saying on the show last night, my birthday, I go out for a ride on a horse, get bucked off that son of a bitch, crack my head wide open on that thing. I am lucky within a couple of inches of being more of a vegetable than I already am. So it's a good thing that things turned out the way they did. But yes, I am glad to be alive, as are all of the faithful. They need this positivity. They need us, Randon. Without us, the rest of that world out there in Niner content land can be a little gloomy. So they need this. They need the sense of it. All right, let's talk about another trade where hopefully we like the value a little bit more. Talking about Jeff Wilson Jr., running back on an expiring contract. You get a 5th rounder in return. Supposedly didn't shop him, but Miami calls once. They have a conversation with Jeff where it's like, hey, your role's reduced. Jeff says, hey, if there's an opportunity for me to go to another team where I can have an increased role, I would relish that. He's a team guy, so I think John Lynch probably looked out for him in that. Things came to term with Miami when they called back a 5th rounder in return, for Jeff Wilson Jr. What do you think of that trade? Do you believe that the Niners will regret giving up that depth, or is that incredible value to get a 5th rounder in return for an expiring running back contract?
Niners went all in on the first trade. They're going all in on the second. They're betting on 100% health out of the running back room. If Eli Mitchell and CMC are healthy for the rest of the season, you couldn't ask for a better 1-2 punts. And that means Jeff Wilson is riding the pine. So why not get a 5th rounder for him, right? So I think they're going all in right now. They're squandering back and forth. Hopefully they get healthy. You know, I really like the move here. A 5th round pick seems to be the real pick here for the Niners, right? Getting the Kittles and of the world and all that kind of stuff like that. And obviously, you know, that doesn't pertain going forward, but Niners fans love hearing 5th round picks come their way. But I really like it, the move. I think it helps both teams. I think a 5th round pick is fair value. It allows them to move up because we don't got any high picks. It allows them to move up and maybe strike and package to get a 3rd round pick. And a top 100 pick is nothing to shine at. That could be a year 1 starter for the Niners, right? So maybe they go all in the draft season and package these guys to move up. So I like it. It gives them more ammo. Jeff Wilson, in a best case scenario, was RB3. So, you know, you're not getting no value for him if he's not on the field. And then you're getting a 5th round value if everything goes correctly, which most of the time as a team, you got to make moves based on health and thinking positively about that health.
Yes. And I do think you hit on the core issue here, which is that it's an all-in move. Because I think there are a lot of people out there like Ian Sharp here that say, hey, man, I don't understand the move of getting rid of Jeff Wilson Jr. You've seen what's happened to our running back room. They get decimated by injury. It happens every season. Jeff Wilson has been consistent this year. He's added some significant value. After that monsoon game to start the year, right? He's averaged more than 16 carries per game over a 4-game stretch. After that Chicago game, averaged 5.4 yards per carry in that stretch, rushed for 120 yards and a touchdown against Carolina. So clearly has value, and you've seen a history of the injuries. But I think what you point out is the Niners are saying, hey, if we have another injury to Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell, our season is not going to go the way that we want it to. Let's focus on those players being the studs, being the lead horses, if you will, and recoup a little bit for next season because we do have a roster that we have to build out. So I saw this move as a little bit of sadness. I'm a big Jeff Wilson Jr. fan. He's a total team guy. I was moved by his farewell to the faithful. I hope the rest of the faithful were as well. But I saw this as a very prudent move. I thought it was a respectful move to Jeff Wilson Jr. as well. And you got the man over to his running game coach in Mike McDaniel, someone he has a relationship with, someone who's going to treat him well. I thought it was a win on both sides, a win for Jeff Wilson Jr., a win for Miami, and a win for the Niners as well as far as the compensation went.
It's definitely a win for Jeff Wilson. Right now, he's running back 15 on the year or 14, something like that in fantasy football, right? I mean, and if he goes to Miami, Mozart isn't lighting it up. They traded away Chase Edmonds in the Bradley Chubb trade. Like Jeff Wilson is one or top dog or second in that offense. If he continues to play the way he's been playing and he's a top 24 running back going into next season, he's getting way more than the vet minimum that he's getting now, which allows him to get some money, which he wouldn't be getting if everybody's healthy on the Niners.
And there's a point here Joey Mellons makes, sneakerhead here on the channel. He says, Jeff was one of the more consistent offensive players. Not a fan of this trade. I certainly understand that perspective of Jeff Wilson has been consistent. We have been lacking consistency on offense. What are you doing getting rid of a player like that? And I also get the stance of we've been plagued by injury. This was another healthy back. I hope that it sends a message that the front office is a little bit more secure in Ty Davis Price and in Jordan Mason than they're letting on, because you may have to turn it over to them at some point if you have one of those injuries, because you don't have Jeff Wilson Jr. on the roster there. It may be that TDP or Jordan Mason ends up getting a few carries where you otherwise would have just thrown Jeff Wilson Jr. back in there.
Yeah, I mean, if we're back down to Ty Davis Price and Jordan Mason, then we're probably not winning games at that point.
Probably not. Probably not. Look at
but maybe that's the point of the people like, hey, let's play what ifs, right? What is a 5th round pick? Let's play what ifs and have Jeff Wilson on the roster. I get both sides, but I think we're doing what's best for the player. And sometimes you want that. You want to see that in an organization. Saw that for the Kings multiple times where the veterans who have won cups with them, they didn't trade the player away until he was ready to be traded out of the organization. You see it now. He spent the last 5 years with San Francisco. They did right by the player. I like the move from an organizational standpoint. It's a classy move for the Niners.
It is a very classy organizational move. Stivers Niners 209 show also with the classy move, pointing out it is Jimmy Garoppolo's birthday today. I was unaware of that. I've not verified this myself, but I'm trusting a source here. 31 years old. If it is indeed Jimmy G's birthday, cheers and a happy birthday to Jimmy G. All right,
let's talk a little bit. Which strip club is he at?
What's that?
So which strip club is he at?
I'm guessing Jimmy can afford to stay
a high-end one.
Yes, it is. Let's talk a little bit about sweeping LA, because goddamn, that feels good, Randon. Was the key to success? I mean, quite honestly, CMC lit it up. It was just stupid. The trifecta, right?
The Holy Triumphant, as we will.
Yes, the Holy Trinity, if you will. Got a rush for a score, caught a score, threw a fucking touchdown. Excuse my language. McCaffrey throws a 34-yarder, but you got to drop an F-bomb when someone gets the triple crown. I mean, that's just required at that point. 34-yarder to Brandon Ayuk, 9-yard pass from Jimmy Garoppolo, and he rushed for that 1-yard score. Was CMC the difference in this game, or is there just a bit of a mental thing between the 49ers and the Rams at this point? Because it honestly feels like with the Rams running a couple of times early in the game when they could have, with 1 minute left in the second half, and then with 6 minutes left in the game, it really kind of felt like they packed it in a little bit. And I can't help but wonder if there isn't some emotional residue of the 49ers beating them, sweeping them for 4 consecutive seasons in the regular season.
I mean, before Russell Wilson was doing calisthenics in the middle of a jet plane going over the Atlantic, he was the ghost of Christmas past for the Niners, right? So, I mean, anytime you heard of Seattle Seahawks, you kind of wet yourself a little bit. So I think it's kind of the same thing for the Niners and the Rams. Not only that, it's just our teams, the Rams don't match up well with us. They just don't defensively. They do not. They played the best defensive game they have ever played against the Niners in the NFC Championship. And kudos to them for doing so. They went with a game plan. We couldn't beat them. It is what it is. CMC was the difference. He's a dynamic. Now get him off the field in the fourth quarter when we're blowing them out. Like let's not tempt fate there. But man, he was. I mean, no offense to Jimmy G, but he's thrown CMC's thrown more 30-yard touchdown passes than Jimmy G in his career as a Niners fan. So just giving that out there.
That's rough, man.
This season, I think it's this season at least.
Yeah. Yes, this season.
But no, that's just a little jab there. But one, I thought Jimmy played a fantastic game this last game against the Rams. But
he had a solid performance.
He's just slinging it out. He's cutting cutting the facial hair close, doing the Italian Stallion look and everything like that. He's slinging the gun. I love it, but man, CMC is just a dynamic player. And you look at a player who had over 1,000-yard rushing, over 1,000-yard receivings in 2019. I bring up Marshall Faulk multiple times for a reason, because that's an active comparison. Look how dominant that Rams team was when they can get a player out of the backfield. You put him in a position where he's one-on-one with a linebacker, one-on-one with a corner. That's not a good matchup for anybody, because CMC can do anything he wants to do. He's bigger than the corner, so he can bowl him over. He's faster than the linebacker. You're getting him in space. It's a throw that Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't have to tempt fate on by throwing it 30-plus yards down the field. Like, you're doing such a great job. And now we're getting Eli Mitchell back. So then you don't have to have him on the field in the fourth quarter. You don't have to have him on the field back there. You can run Mitchell 10 times a game and do the CMC stuff, which is not Shanahan's MO, which is probably going to piss a lot of fans off. I know you're putting the hand up. I know you're putting the hand up because you're getting what it. Yeah.
Will he? Like, can he help himself, Randon? Can he freaking help himself from not overusing CMC? That is my one fear. Like, what the Rams game highlighted for me was Kyle Shanahan's willingness to do what it takes to win. And maybe when Debo's back, it'll be more of an even split. But going back to our concern of CMC's health, I do worry about Shanahan and a little bit of overzealous use of his new toy.
Yeah, I think he had fun. We all had fun. Everybody wanged. Everybody chunged. But we got to be realistic going forward, right? So
everybody chunged.
So I think we got to be realistic going forward. Eli Mitchell's a missile, man. Put him on the field. Ayukin, right? Senor Street Fighter here, dropping bombs on a daily basis. Man, I'm really loving what I'm seeing from this offense. We're getting Debo back. I loved the two running back sets with Jeff Wilson and CMC. Now, granted, CMC was a blocker on one or two. Kind of made me give me the yips. The Chuck Nublock yips from second base where he threw it and it hit a lovely old lady in the third row. But I mean, it made me feel that this team can be dynamic enough to where Shanahan gets that stick out of his behind and starts opening up all this playbook that we've been talking about, and the offense is finally dynamic as we hoped it would be.
I said it last night, and I'll say it again now, that with all of these weapons in place, assuming that health holds at a reasonable clip, if we do not see a far more explosive offense by the end of this year, even I will begin to be a little more critical of Kyle Shanahan and his offensive genius label. Like, I know that's a stretch for me to come off my high horse, because I love to praise Kyle Shanahan. I do think he's an offensive genius. But with all of these weapons, if he is unable to build something out of this wherein we don't have to rely on the defense on a consistent basis, I will definitely be disappointed and critical of Coach Shanahan at that point. Let's talk a little bit about how the Niners may actually be getting healthy and what they need to do in order to finish out this season. We're going to get into more state of the franchise going forward next week, but we're talking about getting healthy. After the bye, there's a chance we get Debo, Juice, Elijah Mitchell, Eric Armstead, Jason Verrett, Azeez Al-Shire, Javon Kinlaw. I know some of those still have big question marks surrounding them, but the vast majority seem like they're going to be ready to go against the Chargers. How big of a difference is that going to be for the 49ers down the stretch to get healthy again?
I'm going to put it in a short thing here. If the defense is as good as it was earlier in the season when everybody was healthy, and the offense is as dynamic as we saw with the Rams, you better watch the fuck out. The league is on notice because there's nobody that's going to beat us at that point. And that's just plain and simple. If we get healthy, that's plain and simple what it's going to be.
It's interesting. There have been a lot of predictions around various players. I've got my own about Javon Kinlaw as to whether he'll be back. Tommy Huxley asking, implying he doesn't believe that Armstead may be back immediately following the bye. A lot of these are still question marks, but enough of them seem poised to come back that it will make the difference. And even if the vast majority do not, what I saw against the Rams leads me to our final topic here that we close out on. And that is that we're 3-0 in the freaking NFC West, right? Hey, that's a good place to be. we do still have to play Arizona twice, and we got to play the number 1 team in the division, the Seattle goddamn Seahawks, sitting at number 1. Who would have predicted that at 5-3? It's critical.
Not I.
it's critical that we win the West here. Do you believe that Shanahan will go all in on those 3 remaining games? Do you believe we will be able to win the West? How do you see this thing shaking out?
Like, what is this guy, Geno Smith? I mean, he didn't in our pregame. Oh, in our pregame, I said, hey, watch out for Geno Smith. Like, he might be sneaky, and he didn't show up against the game against the Niners, but he showed up the rest of the year. And like what is going on? Like, I never thought I would pick the Seattle defense for my fantasy football team, but they're second in the league in defensive fantasy points. Like, it's just ridiculous what's going on over there. Man, I didn't see it coming. It is what it is. Great coach. They're getting the best out of their players going on. They got Kenneth Walker, who is looking like the reincarnation of like Terrell Davis over there, just running over everybody. Man, they just look good. I still think we trounce them again, but I think you got to win the division. When you win the division, you get one of the upper seeds. You get home field advantage. The faithful can come out and show terms. You know, we're not going to be like the San Diego Padres who, restricts ticket sales and all this kind of stuff. If you think I'm bitter because I'm a Dodgers fan, but because the Niners don't need it. The Niners could have the ticket sales open to the entire earth and we'd still sell out that stadium. So it's good. It is what it is. I think the best thing that could have ever happened to the Niners in this wonky season that we've had is the NFC West is wide open. No team has went out there and just put their underpants on the table and said, hey, this is our division. It's wide open.
And it's kind of scary in that regard that, yes, the Niners are poised to win the NFC West, as are pretty much all the teams.
DeAndre Hopkins looks like ridiculous right now. So Arizona's got some chance with DeAndre Hopkins. James Conner's been injured all season. They're getting better. You have the Rams, who I think they might get last place in the division the way they're playing, because the gunslinger ain't slinging very much anymore with Stafford, but you never know. I mean, they won with the same team last year, and Seahawks look poised. It's just, wow. This division's close.
Seahawks are making me eat crow, as they are with Wanda Brown in the comments as well. No doubt about that. Arizona seems primed to get back into this, although they're certainly not a second half team.
If they don't release a Call of Duty patch for Kyler Murray, that team is all in it. Have you seen that? Let's take this on a little small tangent. There's a person who actually did an article about when a Call of Duty game comes out, or a new patch or a new map to Kyler Murray's play, and it's ridiculous. It's so bad. Every time a new Call of Duty game comes out, or a patch or whatever, he's like a bottom 5 quarterback in the league. And anytime that there's just a normal week, he's like a top 8 quarterback in the league. It's such a stark differential. It's so bad. And you wonder, that's why they put it in his contract, and then they backed off, right? Yeah. They backed off it, but it's for real. Somebody actually did a study on it. It cracked me up.
That's brutal, man. Absolutely brutal. By the way, I do want to bring in Jaguile56 with the question here. Rob, of the players you named, how many would you bet money on to be back? We just have to beat the Sea Hags and at worst split with the Red Chickens. I'm liking the names there, Jaguile. But of those, Debo, Juice, Elijah, Eric, Jason, Verrett, Azeez Al-Shire, and Javon Kinlaw, I mean, I'm only willing to wager on 4 or 5 of those 7, but I feel like that's pretty strong. I mean, I'm not willing to wager on Javon Kinlaw, and as much as I want to say I'd lay down money on Jason Verrett, until I see him out there, that one also will be a question mark for me. I do not have the same big question marks about Eric Armstead that others do, although I completely appreciate that it is a lingering issue. The plantar fasciitis is brutal. Absolutely brutal. But I do believe
that drugs, he'll be fine.
Yeah, just numb the hell out of that foot. I do think that we're set up to win the West, and I think that's the way in which the Niners need to approach this, and it's why I take some solace in a decision like Christian McCaffrey still being out there with 5 minutes to go against the Rams. that game, it took us to a 66% chance into the playoffs. Had we lost it, we'd have dropped down to a 33% chance. Now, I know those percentages mean nothing at this time of year, but it highlights just how important that game is. And I believe the 3 remaining division games are the biggest games remaining on the schedule, because all we really need to do is stay ahead of the NFC West, get our asses into the playoffs. And from there, I believe this team can shake it up.
Let that dice roll at that time.
Yes. Yes, indeed. All right. We had to keep this one short because we had other conflicts here. I'm loving all of the people in the chat. Absolutely appreciate the vibe that is going on, the excitement of people seeing Between Two Beards back. And we will be back again next week. I'll be at my home base then. We won't be as rushed. We'll have a full hour show. May still be at a later time, but probably not this late.
Great seeing you, man.
Great to see you as well.
You and that sexy mug of yours. Great seeing you, my buddy.
And you and how goddamn tall you are. I had no idea. I just see you on here. I walked up to the man. I'm not short. I'm 6'1". He's got a head over me, man. You know, tall dude. I just didn't put 2 and 2 together.
I'm a Sasquatch. Yeah.
And on that note, Wanda Brown coming in. Good show, Rob and Randon. Dirk to say cheers, everyone. I appreciate everybody that was here. I appreciate Randon for being a part of the show. It was an absolute pleasure, my friend. We will be back. I don't have a cheers mug here with me, but you all know the drill. Cheers, faithful. Until the next time.